How's it going, everyone? Welcome back to another video on the Film Nerd Reviews channel. Today we are looking at, well, we're not looking at any specific movie, we're looking at the second top 10 video I've ever done on my channel, my personal top 25 movies of 2021. Now, to begin, we're going to start this list with the Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard. Now, this is a movie that basically for this video I'm going to be reading some of the reviews off of my letterbox and also saying my thoughts and feelings on it, but I'm not going to go too in depth because most of these movies I want to do videos on individually reviewing them. I think out of all of these there's one movie that has a review already, and that is No Time to Die. So I didn't write a review for Hitman's Bodyguard, so I'm just going to go off what I remember. Hitman's Bodyguard was a fun action romp film with great cast, Ryan Reynolds, Sam Halleck, Samuel L. Jackson, all brilliant. It had a great plot and a great cast as well, great score by L.T. Overson. It was a fun action movie. It falls into the category of entertainment movies. I've said this again, I want to make a video on this at some point in the future, but there are two types of movies in my opinion: purely entertainment movies that are meant to entertain you, and movies that are meant to be true art cinema. And Hitman's Wife's Bodyguard falls nicely into the entertainment category, and I'm not going to sit here and say that what category is better. They're both brilliant and can produce some really good movies. It just so happens a lot of people don't like entertainment movies sometimes, but this one was one that people enjoyed, and I was one of them. It was an early movie in the year that I saw personally. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's a great time. I highly recommend it. Up next we have Venom, Let There Be Carnage in at number 24. Now, this is a movie for me that was way better than it had any right to be. It was it's very short as well. It's only an hour and 37 minutes long, so it's very, very short, running at just over 90 minutes. But I thoroughly enjoyed it. I think this is a movie that has great performances from Tom Hardy and Woody Harrelson, a really solid script as well, with great music by Marco Beltrami as well. I just think this is a really, again, it falls in the entertainment category. It's a really fun movie that really surprised me on how good it was. It was far better than the first one. I think it could have been a bit longer. It would have been really cool. The one thing I don't like about this movie particularly is Naomi Harris's accent is not my favourite thing in the world. I mean, the CGI is definitely farly improved from the first movie as well. Like I said, Naomi Harris's accent is a problem for me. It is fun, it's enjoyable, and obviously the post-credit scene is something you need to watch if you're a big MCU fan. But yeah, that's Venom, Let There Be Carnage. Coming in at number 23, we have Malignant. Now, Malignant is the latest movie by James Wan. It definitely intrigued me from the trailers, and I was surprised when I saw it as well, because the movie does take its time to kick itself into gear, I think, and it also comes off as something that the trailers just didn't advertise. It came up as something so different, so wacky, a story so wacky, only James Wan could make it work, and could not make it only work, not only watchable, but actually quite enjoyable too. It's nice that we learn more about the protagonist as we go along, instead of dumping it all at the beginning or the end, like a lot of movies do. You learn all new different things. I think it's just something that really surprised me with this movie particularly, was the large amount of action sequences, particularly towards the end of the movie. But like I said, it's a it's a horror movie, so it's you know, it's a very enjoyable movie. It has this very wacky sense of cheesy style to it, but it still comes off as really well done because it's James Wan. So that's just the amazing thing about it. Anyway, in at number 22 we have Free Guy. Now, Free Guy is a video game movie that's not based on a particular video game or of sorts in any capacity whatsoever. Rather, it's based on like a collective of different video games, so you know, and as such, there's obviously a whole bunch of video game references from Fortnite to Mortal Kombat to Portal. It's something that really does stick out the movie. I think the performances are really good here. Ryan Reynolds is basically just being himself, as he is in every movie. Jodie Comer and Joe Keery are both fantastic playing these characters whose story you actually really root for towards the end, and actually, you know, think are quite fleshed out and well done characters. I'm not going to pronounce his name, but Ukurash Bukka is really good too, although I think there is some seriously bad ADR on his character at times, but I still think he does a solid job. Lil Wei Howie is also really funny here too. But Also quite down to earth at times as well, which is nice to see in a character like that. But by far the standout performance here is Taika Waititi, who is just so brilliant. The music, Christopher Beck's music, is brilliant, and for a video game movie, it's really good. But it's a really light-hearted, very family-friendly, I suppose, to an extent, movie that I think is just really fun. And yeah, I would recommend it to everyone. It's such a fantastic movie, and I thoroughly enjoy it. You know, it's just lots of fun. It's great. Put it on anytime. In at number 21 is the ever fantastic Escape Room Tournament of Champions. Now, this was a movie for me that I didn't write a review for this one, but I did see it in the cinemas. It's a movie that I really wanted to see after recently, just before this movie came out. I watched the original Escape Room that came out in 2019, and I really loved that movie. It's one of my favourite movies. I've done a review of that one on the channel. Go check it out, and I intend to do a review of this one as well. But I really love both these Escape Room movies, and I think Escape Room Tournament of Champions really puts itself on the map by doing some interesting different rooms and stuff. And I think it's one of these movies where I had almost an out-of-body experience in some regard. It's one where it really has a very engaging story, a brilliant script, and great music by Brian Tyler and John Carey. And it's just one of those movies that has some really great characters. And both the two Escape Room movies have great characters and are built up throughout the movie. But we also have our two focus ones. We focus here on this one, Zoe and Ben. So yeah, Escape Room Tournament Champions is a fun, enjoyable little thriller movie. It's not horror, it's more thriller. I recommend it to everyone. Go watch it out. It's out now on Blu-ray, DVD and video and stuff. And yeah, I just think it's an absolutely fantastic movie. It's really quite fun. In at number 20 we have People Just Do Nothing Big in Japan. Now, this is a movie that there's two movies on this list, and this is one of them that may or may not be too well known to any American viewers out there, or anyone who actually watches these videos outside of the UK. People Just Do Nothing was a British television series that ran for a few years, a couple of seasons. It was very successful, and this year the cast of it, the cast of characters that you see on the poster here, have done a few bigger things, including this movie, which was a stepping stone into the rest of what they're doing, this movie, and of course the album they released this year, The Greatest Hits Part 1. But when I saw this movie, it was sort of out of I wanted to see something different, something new. I'm sick and tired of seeing not sick and tired of it, but you know, when this movie came out, or when I saw it, it was either side of, I think, some big action blockbusters, and I wanted to see something different, something comedy, something quite cool, and I knew that the TV series was quite well known, so I went out on a whim and saw this movie, and I really enjoyed it. It was really funny. It again falls in the category of entertainment movies, but it's really funny, it's really rich, and I can see why the TV show is so popular. But it's such a well-made movie, if you ask me. I think it's just so funny. The characters really shine on the screen. I think the script also is something that's really cool. And it's obvious that a lot of the actors have some input on the script as well, which is really quite cool to see. I think they really work it well, and it's such a fantastic movie. I would recommend it to all if you can get a chance to watch it outside of the United Kingdom. In at number 19 now we have the Candyman reboot that came out this year. Now, this was a movie I saw quite early on in the year. Well, not early on in the year, but it was one of the first movies I saw after getting my cinema pass from my local cinema branch, Odeon. Now, before watching this movie, I saw the original Candyman. I watched all three of them. Don't watch the second or third one. They're just not worth it. Don't waste your time. Watch the original one, though, because it's really good. And but this movie, for me personally, I think what really sets it apart is its brilliant visual style. Is so fantastic. The visuals and the cinematography are brilliant in this movie. It's got a very good score by Robert Aki-Aujilao, but I think where this movie falls apart for me personally is the story at times. It feels very vague, and I think specifically the ending is an issue that I have. It just kind of ends, and it was like, wait, it just felt like the ending was a bit rushed, and I think it's trying to set up sequels. That's okay, but overall, I think Yahya Abdul-Mateen II is absolutely brilliant in this movie. He's one of my favourite actors. I love him in everything he's in, and I think he's perfect in this movie, and it's good to see the character transformation into Candyman. You can see it through the movie. It's very obvious in the script. And the script is very well handled as well. It's very well done too, I have to admit. Jordan Peele and DaCosta writing this movie is very well written, I have to admit. But I just think there's some things that could be improved, especially with the ending, and the story itself is not too not too hot either. Yeah, number 18 we have Cop Shop. Now, this is an interesting one. This is a very interesting one, because it's not a movie that specifically stands out as being as good as it was. But for me, I was very... this is a movie that I only saw thanks to the fact that the trailer was shown in front of several of the movies I saw in the cinema around just before this movie came out. And it would not have crossed my radar if it hadn't been shown, because I didn't know this movie existed. So that's something I thank the trailers for. Because literally I wouldn't have seen this movie if it hadn't come up on the trailers in front of movies. So that's one of the reasons why I love theatres and cinemas. Well, in the UK we call them cinemas, which is why I don't want them to die away, which is brilliant. But yeah, Cop Shop is just really an incredibly entertaining action flick that's just got some great performances by Gerald Butler, Frank Grillo, Alex Lauder, and Toby Huss. All still the show at the performances. They literally started having a bunch of fun in it. It's so much fun. I loved the music by Clinton Shorter. It's also brilliant. It's got a real 70s action flick vibe, which is something, you know, that I think makes it brilliant. The ending was a bit off. Like, it was like, oh no, someone's going to shoot. Wait, what's this? Someone else has a gun and has shot another important person. I mean, this happens 3 times in the space of 5 minutes in the movie. But besides that, it's a very solid 70s action film that I just found really enjoyable, with a really solid script, great performances, and it was just a really, really enjoyable movie that I thought I enjoyed a bit more too. It was very different. It was a break from all the stuff that was coming out at the time, and as such, I really, really loved Cop Shop. I thought it was so much fun, and yes, I did think it was better than all the previous movies we've talked about, and I think it's a movie that everyone should certainly check out. Yeah, in at number 17, we have Rise of the Foot Soldier Origins. Now, again, I'm going to explain a little bit of this for those of you who aren't in the United Kingdom. And in fact, if you want to know more about this series, I've reviewed every one of these films in this series, including this one, on my channel, so go check that out. But Rise of the Foot Soldier is a series of films based off of the 1995 Rethedon Range Rover murders, where famous drug dealers Pat Tate, Tony Tucker and Craig Rolfe were murdered in a Range Rover in Workhouse Lane in Rethedon. Now, the first film is a fantastic movie. It's an absolutely brilliant masterpiece. The second one's a lot of fun. The third and fourth ones are a bit stupid, but this one takes it back to the beginning, and this is basically the Tony Tucker story. Now, this obviously, it being a British movie is something that's very important to understand when it comes to talking about this movie, but for me, it's just pure fun, batshit crazy entertainment. It is, you know, one of these movies that if you need to laugh, put it on. I think performance-wise here, there's some really great performances from the core cast. Vinnie Jones is brilliant, but you also have great performances from Terry Stone once again, Craig Fairbass, Ronald McCunian, George Russo is really. I really like George Russo's character in this movie. Basil and Joe is really funny. Obviously Keith Allen, another famous actor in this movie, but I really think, obviously there's a slight bias because this is filmed quite close to where I live, and to the point where I literally drive past one of the places where this was filmed on my way from my nan's every day. But I just think this movie's so fun. It's just one of those movies to put on whenever you need something to put on. It's for a very, very low budget, almost amateur movie. Nick Nervin does a fantastic job. He's one of my favourite directors, and he does a fantastic job bringing the Tony Tucker side of the story to the big screen, and I think it's a really fun movie. So yeah, that's Rise of the Foot Soldier Origins. In at number 16, we have Spiral from the Book of Saw. Now, Spiral from the Book of Saw is a movie. It exists, and right now, I'm going to tell you this. I got off to some, not negative things, but this movie was never shown in the cinema near where I live, so I couldn't see it on the big screen. Unfortunately, I had to actually pirate the movie. I don't know why I said that, but I do own the movie several times on physical media, so I did make up for that. But I do remember I was when the first trailer for this movie dropped. I was sat in. It was after school. I was back when I was in high school. It was after school in the concourse area at my school with my best friend. We were sat on the table and I saw the trailer drop and I watched it, and it's a good trailer and stuff. But this is a movie for me that I really enjoyed it. It hit the right points for me. I think Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson are brilliant. I really, really love Max Minghell's character in this movie. Is really, really cool. I like the traps here are nicely spread out, although there are a limited amount and there could be more. Charlie Klaus's score is fantastic. I love the 21 Savage music in this movie as well. He did him and his group, Slaughter Gang, did some music for this movie as well, on the soundtrack. Overall, it's a great Saw movie, a great spin-off from the Saw world that really does carry on the legacy, but obviously we won't be seeing continuation of this world anytime soon, but it's great to see the continuing Saw movies and have someone as big as Chris Rock and Samuel L. motherfucking Jackson in the Saw movie. It was mad. It's certainly not the best movie I've seen this year. It was one that I was more anticipating because I love Saw movies, but it's far from the worst Saw movie, and it's far from the worst movie I've seen this year. It's a very enjoyable horror that has quite a lot of blood and gore and guts in it, which is great if you love horror movies. If you don't, not one you should go out your way to see, but I enjoyed it. Overall, Spiral from the Book of Saw is a very enjoyable movie. In at number 15 we have Clint Eastwood's Cry Macho. Now, I can't lie, the reason why this movie is so high is because I haven't really seen a movie of this kind ever, really, or at least for a very long time, and that's because this movie is not, that's not a bad thing by the way, but this movie is a nice, quaint, slow burner. There's no action, there's no over-the-top loud violence, there's none of this sky beams battles. It's just a story about a man doing things and helping people out. It's, you know, I thoroughly enjoyed it. You know, having this been my, at the time of current recording, I've seen 3 Clint Eastwood movies, but at the time of writing the review, it was only 2. I had seen Richard Jewell, which I fucking love, The Meal, and this movie. Now, obviously, that's what I've seen, but it's not as good as Richard Jewell, but I think it is slightly better than The Meal. I just think it's a brilliant tale of redemption with some really lovable characters in it that you really do stay invested in throughout the movie, and it's just a lovely, peaceful, slow burner. There's no over-the-top action or VFX, just a heartwarming tale of redemption. And Cry Macho is just a really enjoyable, entertaining, slow burner western with a great western-sounding score by Mark Minchin that you're hearing right now. I just think people need to appreciate this kind of movie more often. It's a lovely, nice, slow burner that doesn't have any of the stuff you see in most modern movies, and I really appreciate it for that reason, and that's why it's so high up on this list. It would be much lower down, but it's so high up on this list because I haven't seen a movie of this kind for a while, and it's a really nice one to watch when you just need to chill out, which is why I love it so much. But up next we have Dune. Now, I can't lie to you when I say I was not. When it comes to Dune, this is a movie that I have not read any of the books. I have not seen the previous movie. I had no idea of any of the source material going in. I saw it with a good friend of mine who had read the book and had seen the previous movie. That's when I saw it the first time with him, and I think this is a thoroughly enjoyable movie. It's definitely far from the best movie I've seen this year. I think all the performances are fantastic. Everyone's brilliant, but I think obviously the standout for me is Timothée Chalamet, who's brilliant here. I also think Oscar Isaac is good as well, and also Jason Momoa. But most of the cast give fantastic performances. Hans Zimmer's score is brilliant. This movie has had 3 soundtrack albums released for it, all of different natures and stuff. And I'm playing you a song from that I found was just the most enjoyable one to play for this video. But I just think Dune is overall a really enjoyable movie that has some great characters, a great script in places as well, some beautiful looking visuals. The visuals in this movie are fantastic. The massive landscapes and fantastic looking visuals are just so good, blow me away. But I do think at the end of the day, the last half an hour of this movie really feels so long. It drags so much, and that's obviously not, it is a bad thing, but at the same time you could see that as the movie really building its territory quite well, building up everything quite well. You know, if it's really dragging, it means it's really working, and they're building their world and they're crafting their world brilliantly, which is what I think as well. But at the same time, that last half an hour I saw this movie, I think it was twice in the cinema, and literally towards the end of the movie I just wanted the movie to end. The first time I didn't know it was going to end, but the second time, knowing when it ended, knowing how much of it was left, was a bit... It's still a brilliant movie, which is why it's on this list, but it's far from my favourite I've seen this year, and at the same time it has some brilliant elements to it, but I think there are movies that are a lot better than that, and at some point I probably should have moved this one a bit further down the list, but it is what it is. This list was made, well, actually it was updated today, but I didn't want to shuffle too many things around. In at number 13 we have the most recent movie I've seen on this list, and one that really quite blew me away in how good it was, and that is The King's Man, the prequel to the Kingsman movie. I'm not going to go into in depth because this movie's only just come out, but I think this movie is just so much fun. All the characters are brilliant. Rasputin particularly is so funny. I've gotten someone in my class who Rasputin reminds me of so much, but Rasputin's really funny. I think Ralph Fiennes is brilliant in this movie. Gemma Arterton is really funny as well, and so is Digimon Honsu as well. I think all the cast and characters are fantastic. The story's really brilliant. There are some really truly heartfelt moments in this movie as well, and the script is pretty solid. Also, the music by Matthew Margeson and Dominic Lewis is on top form here as well. I just think overall this is a really fun and enjoyable movie that everyone should go see at the cinemas now. And obviously, it having originally meant to come out a good few years ago is another reason why I was a bit skeptical going in. I can't also help but also mention the fact that the marketing kind of destroyed this movie in a way, because it led me down a path to think a certain character was the villain when that character wasn't the villain at all. Also, I think the marketing, the first few trailers for this movie made it look like a boring prequel tale, and then the last trailer made it look like what it actually is. So I think the marketing really failed this movie in some parts, but at the same time I love this movie. I think it's brilliant. It is one of the most fun movies I've watched this year. It also does jump between actual modern cinema, like arty cinema, and entertainment, but at the end of the day I think it lands in the entertainment section quite nicely. But The Kingsman's a fantastic movie and I recommend it to all. It's so much fun. I won't get into any more detail because I want everyone to go and see it, and it's the most recent release movie on this list, so yeah, go check it out. In at number 12 we have one of my favourite comic book movies of the year, and I think probably the first one on this list if I'm not wrong, ShangChi and the Legend of the Ten Rings. I loved this movie so much when it came out, and if it weren't for a specific other certain movie that is going to appear on this list just a little bit later on, that came out recently, then this would probably be my favourite comic book movie of the year. But there is actually two more above this movie, I can't lie. But, I think it just happens that the other one that is above it next on the list, I think, just pipped it by just a little bit, and then the other one, obviously, reasons for that one, but we'll talk about that in a minute. I just think that this movie, it doesn't help that I love the director who directed this movie, Destin Daniel Cretton. He is such a good director. He directed a movie called Just Mercy that I adore. I think I did a review on that. I'm not 100% sure. I'm not going to check. But I just think that, it's one of the best parts about Shang-Chi. It's not your conventional Marvel story, nor does it have a big bad who wants to take over the world. It's a movie about family. Now that may sound like I've just described to you a Fast and Furious movie, but I have not. And that's what's so good about this movie, because it doesn't go down the family route that Fast and Furious does. It takes a very different approach to that. And I think it's about story and how loss is a very powerful emotion that can shake and destroy people and change people so much. And I think that's the centre of this movie, is family and how loss can affect people. And I think obviously that's very apparent in the character, in the main character of the Mandarin in this movie, not Trevor, but the actual Mandarin, whose actual character name Wenwu, that's it, is Wenwu. But there's a hefty, but at the same time with it being about loss and about family, there's also a hefty amount of comedy, mostly thanks to Katie, played by Awkwafina, and Trevor Slattery, so Ben Kingsley, who are both fantastic in this movie. I have to admit, Simu Liu is just one of my favourite actors in the world. He is so funny, and he brings his all to this movie. Joel P. West's score is certainly something special for me, because not only is it really, really fucking good, it also released on my birthday this year, so it holds a special place in my heart there. It's magnificent, it's brilliant. The VFX here is also quite good. The finale is lots of fun as well. And yeah, Simu Liu shines as Shang-Chi, and Tony Leung is brilliant as Mandarin Wenwu, and the post-credit scenes are fun as well. And just Shang-Chi is overall a really fantastic, solid comic book movie that really blew me away. It's certainly the single best Marvel solo movie that I've made in a very long time. And yeah, I just think Shang-Chi is brilliant. In at number 11 we have, yes, the only DC movie to make it on this list this year, but that's only because it was literally the only one to come out, The Suicide Squad. Listen, the Suicide Squad is something so... It's such a departure from the 2016 one. The action is so fantastic. The dialogue is perfectly written for each character. The music is so good by John Murphy. It all adds up to one of the best comic book movies ever made, if you ask me, falling just behind The Dark Knight. But, you know, there is not one single actor here that steals the show. You know, they're all fantastic, and it wouldn't be as good without any of them. They all really bring the movie together, each and every single one of them, and I mean each and every single one of them. There is not one single actor that I could say stands out, because the whole movie is brought together by every single one of them, and if you take one of them out, it wouldn't be as good as it was. But saying that, there is still, you know, Rick Flag is... I just want to touch on Rick Flag in the... Not that he's better than everyone else, but I just want to say how much his character has changed from the 2016 one to this one, and how much better he is here, which is something that needs to be talked about, how good his character is in this movie. But yeah, all the way to Peter Capaldi's Thinker, to John Cena's Peacemaker, to Idris Elba's Bloodsport. Everyone, and I mean everyone, is absolutely fantastic in this movie. One of the best parts of this movie, though, is the Peacemaker, during the Peacemaker v Rick Flag fight, where we see the fight through a reflection in Peacemaker's helmet, which is just a cool visual, if you ask me. There's some cool other visuals in this movie as well, but it's a really cool and enjoyable visual that I think makes that specific sequence quite fun. And if you haven't seen the movie, a bit of a spoiler out here, but although the early deaths do come as a surprise, it definitely keeps the story moving forward and makes more of the characters stand out more than others, such as, you know, Polka Dot Man is my favourite character in this whole movie. I think Polka Dot Man is so funny, and Dave DeShamalan is just one of my favourite actors as well. There's a list of a few people who I think are my fucking favourite actors. Paul Walter Hauser, Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, fucking Dave DeShamalan, and Simu Liu. They're all my favourite actors ever made. I will never hear the end of that, okay? But, music, again, by John Murphy is really fantastic. I was humming it after leaving the cinema. The blood and gore is well handled, and once again helps the story move forward. The rivalry between Peacemaker and Bloodsport is quite funny at times, I cannot lie. And the finale with Star is also fantastic, but a bit... I think that finale is really fun because it just makes every character stand out when they have their own part, and it also... Something this movie does really well is managing to juggle the large amount of characters very well, not giving certain... While, yes, Harley Quinn has the most screen time out of all characters, she doesn't... It doesn't mean the others don't have enough screen time. They all have nice amounts of screen time. They may not be equal, but they have just the right amount of screen time to keep them all present in your mind at the end of the day. King Shark is just the most durable thing at times, and is just also the most deadly at the same fucking time. The Savant is short-lived, but he does get his head blown off, which is fucking cool. Weasel was just, you know, funny, I suppose. Ratcatcher 2 is quite compelling, and actually, if you didn't know, Ratcatcher 1 is played by the awesome Taika Waititi, so yeah. Everything about this movie is literally just Guardians of the Galaxy on steroids, and yeah, it's just a fantastic movie, and could only be told and made in a way James Gunn could make it. So, Suicide Squad is just so fantastic. It's brilliant. And now, obviously, this movie narrowly missed the top 10, so we're going into my top 10 favourite movies of the year, so brace yourself, this is going to be an interesting one. Before we get into this, there's a few I haven't seen, you know, Power of the Dog, Licorice Pizza, which I won't be seeing this year, so that's why I'm making this video without those movies in it, because The Electric Life of Louis Wayne, some of those movies aren't coming out till next year in this country, Nightmare Alley, so I can't rate them as 2021 movies, 2022 movies, because they're releasing next year in my country of origin. That's just how I work. Sorry about that. I'm sure Licorice Pizza would certainly be on this list, but it's not. Deal with it, this is my channel, fuck off. In at number 10, and starting off our top 10, is the absolutely okay movie that I don't think should be where it is on this list personally, but I'm not changing it at this point. House of Gucci. Now, I do know a few people who I saw this movie with that will not be too happy I put this movie this high on the list. I can't lie. But I think for me, what really makes me put this movie so high is the performances from a certain selection of people, mainly 4 of the 5 people on this poster that you see here. But House of Gucci is a fun film. It's a fantastic movie. Lady Gaga is brilliant as Patricia. Adam Driver is also excellent, and I think she'll be nominated for an Oscar as Maurizio Gucci. Al Pacino is a pleasure to watch and is funny as Aldo Gucci, and Jared Leto steals the show as Paolo Gucci. Seriously though, Leto shines here, and he needs a best supporting arm, please. But I think, alas, here the thing that brings it down is the script. It's just some peculiar lines of dialogue that sound like it's written by a child at times, and it bounces between brilliant and annoying. But the character development is just so deeply into this movie as well, that you can really see the turning points with each character, like Maurizio or Patricia. It's just fantastic to see. Obviously, the characters' motives change and move throughout the years. I just think the biggest issue this movie has, though, is without a doubt the track of time. There's time jumps of 5 years, and the movie doesn't tell you. You just have to figure it out by the few times that it's mentioned in dialogue, which is the biggest problem this movie has, and which is why I only gave it 3.5 stars on Letterboxd, because it's a serious problem that this movie has. And it only does it one time at the end, where it tells you what the exact year, day, and time it is, just which is when Patricia's death is. House of Gucci's score by Harry Gregson Williams. House of Gucci's score by Harry Gregson Williams is limited, but it also does help keep the movie going at times. In small doses, it does appear. Obviously, there was no original motion picture score or original motion picture soundtrack containing just score material released for this movie. A music from the motion picture album was released with a score suite at the end, which is 8 minutes of length by Gregson Williams. So go listen to that, which is what's playing right now. Overall, House of Gucci is just, a mixed, if fairly well made and competent movie with some really great performances. That is the reason why it's so high up, is because Lady Gaga's performance is absolutely fantastic, and it's just a shame that the script lets her down in some departments and the time jumps are so bad. Also, Jeremy Irons is shit in this movie. I'm just saying, fuck off, I don't care. Now, in at number 9, our next one in the top 10 is Listen, I'm not going to talk too much about this movie. I'm not even going to read from my Letterboxd review, because you should just watch the review I did recently of this movie. I'm just going to say I enjoyed this movie. I think I'm just going to stay here and say that while it's not Craig's best Bond movie, this is of course No Time to Die. If you can't read, just saying. I thoroughly enjoyed this movie. I thought Safin was underused. I thought Paloma is the best character in the fucking movie. I thought the action sequences were brilliant. The cinematography is fantastic. It's a visually fantastic and visually thriving movie with a very, very good script. And, some very, very particularly interesting characters. And an ending that is, without a doubt, one of the most interesting endings in cinematic history. But it is what it is. It's a great way to end off Daniel Craig's tenure as Bond, and it's just a fun movie. If you want my more in-depth and full thoughts on this movie, check out the 30-minute movie review I made of this movie recently, which is now live on the channel. Go check it out. In at number 8, without further ado, we have Wrath of Man, the latest Guy Ritchie movie. Now, I adore The Gentleman, as I've got a review on my channel of it, so do check that out. And I think this movie is, while it's not as good as The Gentleman, it's certainly a really fun and enjoyable movie. It's a fun action one with a really steady script, I think, and a pretty decent score as well by Chris Binstead, which we'll talk more about in a bit. It stands out with this very well shot action sequences and fairly engaging story, and a great performance, a fairly solid performance from Jason Statham and Scott Eastwood too. It's a very enjoyable movie, that keeps you on your toes throughout. The plot and story is fantastic. Chris Binstead's score sets the mood and is a character by itself. Overall, Wrath of Man is just a very well-made movie with incredibly well-crafted plot and some great direction from Ritchie over here. Yeah, what more do you want me to say? Wrath of Man is a fantastic movie. You should go check it out. Unfortunately, in the United Kingdom, where I currently reside, this movie was never released in cinemas. It was planned to, stricken off the release schedule, and was sent, unfortunately, to the terrible pit of hell that is direct to streaming. It is currently streaming in the United Kingdom exclusively on Amazon Prime Video, and you cannot watch it in any other way in the United Kingdom except from pirating it, but that's kind of illegal. Or buying a region-free Blu-ray if they do exist. Who knows? But yeah, That's been Wrath of Man, and in at number 7 we have a very, very interesting movie, a very topical movie at the moment. A very topical movie at the moment. The most recently released Marvel movie and the highest ranking comic book movie on this list. There is no other movie comic movie anywhere near this one on this list. We are, of course, talking about the undeniably interesting and very, very specific movie that is, of course, Spider-Man No Way Home. Now, for the sake of having to talk about this movie, I will put a massive fuck off spoiler warning. Do not continue. Well, with Bond, I'm going to let that settle as well. I think I cannot talk about how good this movie is, and especially ranking it in this form, without talking about several spoilers that occur in this movie. So stop watching this video now. Go and watch another movie if you haven't seen Spider-Man. If you haven't, you're one of about the 4 people left on Earth that haven't seen it yet. But if you have enjoyed this, what I'm talking about. But if you haven't, please stop watching this video now. Stop watching this video now and go and watch any other of the videos of on my channel. But what I can say is that Spider-Man No Way Home is just it's an enigma. It's a very special movie because while it's not the greatest movie ever made, it's movies like this and Avengers Endgame where the cinematic experience, the experience inside the cinema and or theatre that really makes this movie one of a kind. It's a movie where you're never going to get that same experience you've had in the theatre or cinema at home, and it's a shame, but it's a movie that really, really is such a special movie for that reason. And I think, like I said, my heart has not beaten faster in my entire life than when the portal opened and Andrew stepped through and took off his fucking mask. I was with one of my closest friends from college, and we literally, the whole cinema screamed. It just was mental. It was so mad. I literally couldn't breathe for a while, and then I nearly had a fucking heart attack when Toby stepped through the portal. And when Toby stepped through the portal, I did a bro hug with my friend, and I leant over to him and I said, "I am gonna die." It was so funny, but it goes without saying that the 3 Spider-Men have so much chemistry with them, and they share a truly emotional scene where they talk about loss, which is the loss that each one of them suffered. Is really, goes without saying that's a fantastic scene. It was great when Andrew saved MJ as well. The crowd went absolutely nuts again. But moving on to the villains, first up, Doc Ock. He's brilliant. Alfred Molina gives a tremendous performance, even with the use of CGI. Electro is fantastic. Jamie Foxx brings a whole new layer. Sandman and Lizard can just be removed. It doesn't matter. Sandman's motives are fucking terrible in this movie. I can't lie. He just wants the box so he can go home. So it's stupid. Lizard is just there because if he wasn't, there'd be fucking riots. And of course, Green Goblin, who is easily the best villain and the most thought-provoking backstory as well as to how he got into the MCU. And Willem Dafoe is without a doubt the shining star in this entire movie. The ending here is very, very sad. I think it sets itself up for future installments in an interesting way. Certain characters' death is also saddening as well. I also fucking love the use of the I'm something of a scientist myself meme. Doctor Strange is fun, and of course you've got to talk about Giacchino's fucking score. Michael Giacchino is a god tier film composer, and this music is god tier film music. It's just so good, it makes every scene better. Spider-Man No Way Home is a brilliant movie. Like I said, having the 3 Spider-Men there is something so special, and it's a movie that really is about that cinema experience. And it's unfortunate that if you hadn't got a chance to see this movie in the first week of release, dare I say, first 2 to 3 days, you weren't going to get the same experience that you would if you see it now, because that early few days experience is when the core crowd who would have the reactions that cinemas had would be there. And as someone who had that experience, was lucky enough to see it on day 1 in the United Kingdom, which was the 15th, who literally got out of college and ran to the cinema, sat in the seats with my heart beating even with the trailer playing, and my heart nearly fucking exploding when those characters appeared. As someone who has that experience and cherishes that experience every minute of every day, and knows that you just can't have that experience ever again. That the first time you see this movie is such a special moment, and I think, like I said, it's only that special moment in the first few days. And if you weren't lucky enough to get that experience, I'd recommend typing into YouTube the scenes and then watching the audience reactions, because it's such a special moment to see so many people have that kind of reaction to characters, to be able to have that kind of emotional reaction to certain characters just walking into shot and taking a mask off. Like, come on, that's something special. But that's Spider-Man No Way Home. I'll talk more about that in the No Way Home review. In at number 6, and narrowly missing out on being in the top 5 movies of the year, we have Ghostbusters Afterlife. Now, I adored this movie when it came out. This movie, when it came out, I was shocked at how good it was. Like, for me, it had no right to be as good as it was. Like, the writing in this movie is so good. Like, it's so well written. The cast is fantastic. The music is fucking brilliant. Rob Simpson's score was fucking class. I can't lie. Paul Rudd is good if underused. Finn Wolfhard is also underused, but the standout is my favorite character in the whole. My favorite characters in this whole movie are McKenna Grace as Phoebe and Logan Kim as Podcast. They're just so funny and actually have some genuine chemistry together on screen. The music by Rob Simpson is also absolutely fantastic, like I mentioned, but it has a great mix of the sound, great mix of Simpson's own sound and style, and also it's a great mix of the sound of the first movie score by Elmer Bernstein and Simpson's own style, which is really great, and it works quite well blending the two styles together. And the presence of the OG Ghostbusters, Bill Murray, Dan Aykroyd, and Ernie Hudson was really good. It seems they slid straight back into these characters like almost instantaneously. It was also nice to see Sigourney Weaver and Annie Potts revising their roles here too. Side note, J.K. Simmons and Olivia Wilde, as well as Josh Gad, also have minor roles, one of which is uncredited, that one being Olivia Wilde as Gozer. And they're also quite fun as well, although it's quite funny that J.K. Simmons literally has like 2 lines of dialogue and then he fucks off and dies. I do have a few issues though, however, one of which is that it's quite slow in places and it does take its time to actually get going. The other is I'm not really a huge fan of the CGI Harold Ramis at the end. It looks weird and I can see why he didn't actually say anything, because it just would have been cringe. But Ghostbusters Afterlife is so brilliant. It's a fun movie with a great cast, great writing, a fantastic score, and it really is a movie that had no right being as good as it was. It was just so brilliant. I also think they missed the mark releasing this movie in late November instead of late October when spooky season was ripe. But hey, it doesn't matter either way. It was a fantastic movie. It is definitely... I had no idea that this movie was going to be as high as it was up on this list, because it shocked me that it was as good as it was. And yeah, I recommend watching this movie for everyone. It is fantastic. It is truly one of the best Ghostbusters movies ever made. It's not as good as the first one, but it's just a movie that I did not expect to be as good as it was, and that's why it's so high up on this list. In at number 5, and starting off our top 10 is... King Richard, the movie about Serena and Venus Williams, and their father, Richard Williams, bringing them up. Now, there is a slight bias here because I am a tennis player myself, but even taking that away, it's clear to see why this movie had so much press and buzz about it. It is such a heartfelt, brilliantly well-told movie that I think is just so brilliant. It's a bit long, I can't lie, but Chris Bowers' score is fantastic. John Berthenol here is brilliant in this movie. Will Smith is absolutely fantastic, if not an Oscar-worthy performance. The 2 teenage girls playing Venus and Serena do a fantastic job too. It's just such a heartwarming and fantastic story. And I had the pleasure of watching this movie with my tennis coach. So, very, very nitpicky moments, but that's what I expected. So, it was more the fun seeing it with the tennis teachers, because I could ask him questions about, is this factually accurate, which was nice. But overall, it's just a really, really heartwarming movie that has a great visual style to it, a really, really solid script, a great score by Chris Bowers. And overall, it's just such a really heartwarming and fantastic movie that I was very much looking forward to when I saw about it. And it's such a great movie, one of the best movies of the year. I thoroughly recommend everyone go and check this movie out. It's brilliant. In at number 4, and continuing our top 5, we have Don't Look Up. Now again, another quite recently released movie. Another quite recently released movie on Netflix, a Netflix exclusive. I just loved this movie so much when I saw it. I fell in love with this movie. It was literally shot up within literal final few days of 2021. It shot up to 4. That's how good this movie was. It's a rare treat of a movie. A film so wild, so out there. There is truly nothing else quite like this movie, and I think a part of that is down to the absolutely incredible performances in this movie, particularly from Jennifer Lawrence and Leonardo DiCaprio, who absolutely steal the show. If they don't get nominated for Oscars, I will be fucking furious. But other standouts also include your boy Jonah Hill, Mark Rylance, Rob Morgan, Timothy Chalamet, Meryl Streep, Kate Blanchett, and Himesh Patel. But the humour in this movie is incredibly well placed, and it adds a layer as well. The film has a few gags and at least eggs here and there to help, add moments to the film. And the script is just extremely well polished, with terrific dialogue as well. Nicholas Patel's sweeping yet fun score is brilliant as well, as you're hearing from the main title suite here. Don't Look Up is just a movie that I recommend you all go and watch right now. It's on Netflix. It's a bit long at 2.5, but it's so funny and it's so politically correct as well into how it treats all the characters, and the ending is weird and wild, and it's just such a movie that you mad. The fact that this movie was originally supposed to come out in theaters and not on Netflix is just mad. And the fact this movie was even fucking greenlit in the state it was as well is just incredible. It's such a fantastic movie, a great movie to end 2021 on for me. Well, at least in terms of Netflix wise and stuff. Or one of the last few releases of the year. I fucking love this movie. Don't Look Up is so good. I'm not gonna lie, going into it, I was a little bit like, is this gonna be as good as I think it will be? I don't know, but it was really good. I wasn't 100% into it, but yeah, as it went on, I thoroughly enjoyed Don't Look Up, and it is one of my favourites of the year. Now, in at number 3, we have Spencer. Now, I'm not gonna lie, this movie wasn't immediately on my radar when it first came out. In fact, I saw it towards the end of its release in the cinema. In the smaller screen in my cinema, so it was literally I think I saw it on the last day, ironically. But the only reason why I saw this movie is because my favourite film reviewer, Macho, said it was one of his favourites of the year, and I thought, well, fuck it, I'll give it a go. And I did, and I'm very happy that I did give this movie a go, because it is just stunning at how fucking brilliant this movie is. There is obviously the divide between entertainment and art, and this is one of those art movies that's so fucking brilliant. The story is gripping and really keeps you invested all the way through. Kristen Stewart is fantastic as Diana, and the cinematography and the shots are just so brilliant as well. John Goodwood's score is to die for. It really adds another layer to the movie, and it's so quirky and different to most other scores that you see nowadays. It's really cool. Spencer is just something so special, and obviously being someone who lives in the country of origin of this story, but not someone who lived through it personally, it is a movie that I think a lot of people are going to be very doubtful of how good it is. A lot of people who I talked about this movie originally thought the movie was about her entire life, when it's just about split across 3 days, the 24th, the 25th and the 26th of December, which is, again, I was someone else who was very skeptical of this movie, never really wanting to go and 100% see it, but I'm glad I did, and I recommend it. As someone who was skeptical myself, if you are sat there behind this screen, or phone or tablet, wherever you're watching this on, being skeptical of this movie, thinking it's just going to be some boring royal movie, go and watch it, find a way to watch it, because it's really not that, because it's focused on the one member of the royal family who wasn't like the rest, and that is why this movie is so brilliant, because it's focused on the one who is different, and I think that's what makes this movie so different from any other attempt at, adapting a royal family sort of shit, because it's so frantically well told, and Kristen Stewart is fantastic as Diana here, and it's a movie that I recommend everyone go watch. It is so good. It is brilliant. And now we're into the top 2 movies, my second favourite movie of 2021, and a movie that held the title for Best Movie of 2021 for about a week before it was dethroned almost immediately by number 1, but was a movie that I think it was my single most anticipated movie of 2021. It is The French Dispatch. Now, 2021 was a year where I discovered Wes Anderson movies. There's so many more I've got to watch. Moonrise Kingdom is coming to Netflix soon. Rushmore, The Royal Tenenbaums, The Life Aquatic with Steve Zissou, The Darjeeling Unlimited. There's so much left to watch. Fantastic Mr. Fox, Isle of Dogs, and of course his magnum opus that I have seen, Grand Budapest Hotel, which I've got a review on the channel for. But Grand Budapest and this movie I'd say are quite similar, but I think Grand Budapest Hotel was better. But we're not talking about Grand Budapest, we're talking about the fucking brilliant movie that was The French Dispatch. I just love it. It's as Wes Anderson as a Wes Anderson movie can be. The black and white in some sequences is brilliant as well, but also the colour, again, as with the Wes Anderson movie, there's some really vibrant and bright colours that are fantastic. In addition, the movie does switch from 4:3 to full widescreen a few times in the movie, which makes things interesting. But yeah, the movie does have a very interesting structure. There's obviously it has a structure of several different stories weaved into one, which is an interesting way to go, but I think it does lose some aspects or the pacing certainly throughout due to that. But the animation, there's animated car chases, was the which we're hearing the music from now, and the animation used is pretty cool as well. It's solid, but let's talk about the best part of this movie, the score. Alexander Desplat's score has been in my head for fucking ages. I listen to it on a daily basis. It is fucking brilliant. Desplat is a genius. He is awesome, and he shines brightly with his incredibly enigmatic score, and I just love the music here. I have the soundtrack on CD. I will say this: you need a very good concentration to fully understand what's going on. French Dispatch is brilliant. It has great visuals. I do think it is not ruined, but it's brought down a little bit by its messy structure. But as a Wes Anderson movie, it is brilliant. I had to go out of my way to see this movie because I weren't showing at my local cinema, so I had to drive about 3 or 4 miles away out of town just to see it, and I'm glad I did. It's a movie that I was very, very happy to drive out of town just to see. I wasn't going to let this one slip by and not see it in the cinema, and I'm very glad I did. I saw it twice in the cinema, once in a one near close by to me, and then once when I was visiting my family in London. We saw it on the way back, much to the dismay of my mother. But please do check it out. It's one of those movies that isn't going to make very much of the box office compared to everything else. It is cinema, it's art, it's a movie that does lean in that artsy-fartsy style. That's what my mother calls this movie, the artsy-fartsy French movie. But French Dispatch is just one of my favourite movies ever made. I love every second of this movie, and I think it has the best soundtrack, the best score of any movie this year. But now, alas, we are entering the number 1. We are entering the number 1. We are number 1. We are entering number 1. And let's go into the my number one favourite movie of the year of 2021. A movie I adore with every single molecule of my body. A movie that has remained my favourite movie of the year through October, through November, and through all of December. It has not been dethroned once. There were a few movies that looked like it were going to come close, but they didn't. And I can officially say, even though it's only the 28th, that this is my favourite movie of the year of 2021. And I don't know if you've guessed it by now or not, but it is the absolutely fantastically wonderful, the brilliantly fantastic Last Night in Soho. I just fucking adore this movie. I loved it. I was gonna like it anyway, but it was for me a above and beyond. It's a masterpiece. Its storytelling is brilliant. Its structure, sound, and writing are second to none. It's brilliantly structured. The pacing is just fantastic. It really doesn't skip a beat at all. The way the story is told is literally perfect. The twists that unfold throughout the runtime are perfectly placed to keep adding more layers to the story for the viewer to pick apart. And I do want to say there is one thing with this movie, is that when I first saw it, the first 10 to 20 minutes ish of this movie made me physically uncomfortable the way certain people were acting around our main protagonist, and it does in some way, you know, remind me of myself in some of the part, but I'm not going to talk about that because that's not what this is for. But I definitely did relate to the character of what was her name? Of Eloise. I very much relate to the character of Eloise, and someone who has stuck in a different time period, who was born in the wrong time period, sort of thing. I do relate to that. But stellar performances here from Thomasin McKenzie, who is one of my favourite actors as well. Adam Taylor-Joy, Matt Smith, Terence Stump, and Diana Rigg in, unfortunately, her final film role. The soundtrack is fantastic. The score is pretty good as well. Soho, Last Night in Soho is just incredibly well shot, acted, written. The twists and the structure, it's one of a kind movie that I am so glad I saw this year. In the last few years, my perception of movies has changed dramatically, and if you showed me a movie like this a few years ago, I would not have said it would be my favourite movie of the year. But as I've learned new things about movies and films and stuff as I'm studying them, and I do get this is not the most left-wing movie for someone like, you know, I am a movie reviewer, so I know there's other reviews out there that stuff like Titane and Petite Maman and stuff like that. But just because I haven't seen those, by the way, but just because I think something like this is my favourite movie of the year doesn't make me any less of someone in a position to review movies, because everyone can. It's something everyone can do, and that's what is so brilliant about movies in general. Is everyone has a different opinion. And it's so fun to just come into class every day for me and discuss all these different movies with different people, and people having different opinions, and it's nice to express those. And I think doing something like this was interesting for me because I don't know how people are going to react to it. I love Soho. It's one of my favourite movies ever made. It's definitely my top 10 movies ever made. I just think it's so well, brilliantly made, and I don't care if people think I'm bad for saying it is. So that has been my top 25 movies of the year. This is all of them here in one big go. Obviously, I've had to make the picture smaller and smaller to fit them all in. But here we go. An interesting selection of movies. Some really big ones like Free Guy, Dune, Kingsman, ShangChi, Spiderman No Time to Die, Gucci. Some smaller movies like Cry Macho, Dispatch, Soho, Spencer, Don't Look Up, King Richard. And a good mix of different genres as well. You've got action, you've got horror, you've got thriller, you've got comedy, you've got Essex, isn't it? You've got slow burners, you've got period pieces, you've got real life adventure based on real stories, you've got action humour, you've got 70s style, you've got, you know, classic, you've got very political, you've got very artsy, you've got very, you know, a very, very wide selection of movies, and I'm happy with this top 25. I think there's a lot there. Given me a couple of years ago, something like this list would be looked very different, with a lot more of Spider-Man stuff being at the top. But as someone who really enjoys movies as a hobby now, this is a fantastic list in my opinion, and I highly implore you to check out every one of these movies that I talked about today, because they're all fantastic. No matter what position you are on the list, they're all fantastic movies, and no matter what position you are on the list, this list is irrelevant, because behind the camera on all of these movies, there's fantastic cast and crew that put their all into making these movies, and no matter how bad the movie is, there's still someone out there, even if it's one person, that put their all into every movie they make. And even if the movie isn't to your taste, that one person is still really happy with their output. So I think you should just appreciate the fact that everyone enjoys different movies, and just go out and enjoy the world. It's a very particular way of saying things, but hey, that's that, I suppose. But yeah, yeah, I just think everyone should go and enjoy all the movies that they enjoy. There's no need to get aerated. All movies are brilliant. This is a fact. Hey, I made music now. Go check out the Dome. But like I said, 2021 has been a fantastic year for movies. It's been a rocky year for cinema as a whole, with you know, COVID and stuff, and the amount of movies that we saw come out this year that's supposed to come out 2-3 years ago. You know, big examples of that: No Time to Die, Dune, The Kingsman, which has been delayed for fucking years. French Dispatch was supposed to come out last year. Ghostbusters was supposed to come out last year. Venom, I think, was supposed to come out last year. So Spiderman was supposed to come out last year. So just to see a lot of some of these movies, there was a few movies filmed during the pandemic, which was really cool to see. They were filmed last year, got released this year. Some movies pushed back, pulled forward. 2022 is looking to be even better year for movies, with some very interesting movies to come. But 2021 was a fantastic year. All these movies are fantastic. You know, there's a great selection of directors behind the camera. You know, from Carrie J. Fukunaga with Bond, to Guy Ritchie, to John Watts, to Jason Reitman, to Adam McKay, to Pablo Larraín, to Wes Anderson, to I've forgotten his name, to Destin Daniel Cretton, to Matthew Vaughn, Dennis Villeneuve, Clint Eastwood, not Charlie Clouser, Darren Bousman, Nick Nervan, Nia DaCosta, Sean Levy, you know, Adam Robitaille, James Wan, everyone who's directed a movie, who's written a movie this year, great job. 2021's been a great year for movies. Every one of these movies is fantastic. Like I said, go watch them, go check them out, go listen to the soundtracks. All these movies have stellar soundtracks. Not all of them have had a soundtrack release yet. I think, looking at this list, the only two that come to mind that haven't had a full soundtrack and or score release yet is Foot Soldier Origins and People Just Do Nothing Big in Japan, which is ironic considering they're both the only two corely super British movies. But everything else has had a soundtrack and or score release. Yes, even House of Gucci, which took a while to come out. But yeah, go check all that stuff out. Go support the composers as well. And yeah, thank you so much for watching this video. Have a wonderful day, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Bye bye for now.